Hey, what up? It's Tampa Brad back at you with book number 5 of my 20 books for 2020. We're almost done. We're into the top 5 books. Now, I'll tell you, before I crack into this video and talk to you about what book 5 actually is, the top 5 books really could have been put in this list in any order. The order of them in particular kind of just depends on my mood of the day. So this is just where I'm at right now. All 5 of these books, if there's 5 books that you're gonna, I would say, you know, are just required reading for any human being, it would be these 5 books. The amount of impact that these books have had on my life in a very tangible, specific way, by the way, every single one of them, and in a different aspect, is really just very hard for me to even express. It's hard for me to explain the extent to which these books have affected my life and really brought a lot of joy and peace and understanding of how the world works. And what I've noticed is a lot of the best books talk about how the world works, give specific examples of the different principles that the author has found, and then applies it to some very specific instances that wind up being actually very widely applicable to life in general. So that's kind of the way that these books are laid out, and they're all books that actually they would be recommended, I'd say, of varying degrees. Some people will really like some of them, some people will be like, oh my God, I can't believe that's in your top 5, and that's okay. And everyone would have their own different ones. I think that your top 5 books really would be based on what your specific challenges are in life. So my challenges were relating to people. I would say finding what true happiness really means to me, selling, I'm a terrible salesperson, and getting other people bought in to the things I have to say, and storytelling. Those are things that I struggle to do inherently. So I've had to find things that books and resources and videos that help me to do those things, and these 5 books have been instrumental in one of those particular areas. So without further ado, my number 5 book for 2020 is Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. This book is, if you are in any type of sales in any way, shape, or form, whether it's direct or indirect, the principles that Oren lays out in his book, Pitch Anything, are universally applicable. And I do not say that lightly. They are universally applicable. They apply to any type of sales you could be trying to do in any way, shape, or form, or any situation. Even if you're trying to sell to a tree or an alien, it still applies, okay? So what he goes over in the book is the fact that he is a pitchman. So he goes into boardrooms and pitches venture capitalists on an idea of a person who's trying to start a startup. So they need funding to make their idea a reality. He goes to the VCs who have the money, who are getting, by the way, pitched probably 500 to 600 times a year, usually 2 to 3 a day on working days. And Oren goes in, and on behalf of the people seeking the venture capital, he presents their pitch to the VCs. What Oren noticed over time is that the venture capitalists would respond to certain cues. He could do certain things and structure his pitch in a certain way that would get a way better response. So literally via testing, he determined what is the best way to pitch these venture capitalists. And what he realized he was creating is a framework for presenting an idea that gets someone's attention, gets people to actually listen to it. Let me ask you this, when's the last time you told someone about an idea that you were excited about and they actually gave a flying fuck about the idea? Probably never for most people, maybe once or twice in your entire life, and it was probably your mom who has to do that because she popped you out of her body. For most people, their ability to create buy-in from other people on their ideas is this much. Goose egg, 0, zil, nilch. So, that being said, if you want to have any type of impact on anything in the world, you have to be able to get buy-in to your ideas. Teamwork is what makes the dream work, so to speak. You are going to require, in whatever you want to do, to get people bought into your ideas, okay? So that's the framework. So what Oren realized is when he was coming up with his pitch ideas, right, in his brain, if you think about, you know, so you come up with something in your noodle, there's different pieces of the brain. And so this comes from some biology, and I think it would also be psychology or physiology. So there's 3 main parts to the brain as I understand it. There's the frontal lobe, the front brain, there's the midbrain, and there's the hindbrain. towards like the stem, I think. I don't know that 100%. The specifics of it are not that important, but the concept is the frontal brain is what makes us uniquely human. It gives us our idea of consciousness. It allows us to reason at a very high level. And so that is the most recent biological and evolutionary development in our brain. The midbrain is the next most recent, and the hindbrain is the oldest. So what happens is, because the hindbrain was the first to develop, that's what keeps us alive. That is the baseline that you need to keep your brain functioning and your body functioning and not be killed. And that's where your flight or flight response comes from. That's how you know if you need to pay attention to something. That's also where your reticular activation system is housed, which dictates what you will focus on. Your RAS, reticular activation system, look that up. Again, look it up, reticular activation system. That is your selective focus. That tells you, is this important? Should I focus on it? Super funny. My girlfriend is driving my car, by the way. My RAS said, is that my car? That's how your reticular activation system works. That's very perfect timing. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's probably gonna get a ticket because she doesn't know where to park. Anyways, your reticular activation system tells you where to focus. It's located in your hindbrain, okay? So when a signal comes to you, if you think about the amount of signals or ideas or information that are coming at us on a daily basis, it's nearly infinite, right? You have so much data coming at you. Think about looking at there's a bush over here, looking at the individual leaves of the bush. There's grass, looking at the individual blades of grass. There's a lot of specific things you could focus on. You could look at the lines in your hand, but because there's so much sensory stuff going on in the outer world, our brain just can't take it all in. Your brain doesn't have enough processing power to compute all of that that's going on around you, right? So your brain, by necessity of keeping itself alive, it doesn't have unlimited energy and it doesn't have unlimited time to process things. It has to selectively piece out what it's going to focus on. So since your brain is constantly basically being a deletion machine, your brain is constantly saying, nope, don't focus on that, not a threat, ignore it, ignore it, ignore it. In order to get past that with an idea, it's very challenging. That's why it's so hard to get people to connect with your ideas, is because their brain is constantly saying, dude, I'm already overstimulated. You're trying to throw another thing at me. Please, no, stop. I want to listen to you, but I physically can't. Most people physically can't listen to other ideas because they're presented in the wrong way. They're conceptualized in the frontal lobe, the front of your brain, which is the later in time of evolution, the later developed piece of your brain. And as it goes through from that to the other person, the way a message is received is not the same as it's conceived. So if you conceive of an idea in your frontal lobe, the front brain, the prefrontal cortex, when you transmit that idea via text or voice or whatever to another person, it doesn't go straight to their prefrontal lobe or to their frontal lobe where it can actually be processed in the same way that it was conceived. It has to go through the hindbrain and the midbrain to get to the frontal lobe. Most people have no idea what that even means. What it means is it has to hit the criteria that the hindbrain and that the midbrain are looking for in order to get processed and be allowed, again, allowed by the brain to be processed in the frontal lobe. If it doesn't meet the criteria that the hindbrain and midbrain are looking for, it will not go to their prefrontal cortex. They won't be able to dedicate any real brain power to considering it in a rational or logical way if you don't get the alligator brain on board first. Again, if you don't have the alligator brain on board, that reptile lizard brain in towards the base of the start of their spine, the base of their brain, if that isn't locked in on what you're saying, because it is evolutionarily relevant to them and their DNA, they cannot listen to it. Cannot, not will not, cannot. It is physically impossible for a human brain to focus on something that it does not deem to be important to its survival or evolution or reproduction. Something that's extremely vital to its survival as an organism. So, that said, well, what does that mean? What, how, what, okay, cool, like, got it. It needs to be, what, I need to talk about flies because it's going to the lizard brain? Not exactly. What it means is, you need to express your ideas in a way that hits the criteria that the hindbrain is looking for. What it's looking for in ideas is a couple things. One, it is determining, is this a threat or can I ignore this? So you have to show that you have to create what's called a fear of missing out. You have to show why your idea is important and that there could be a potential loss to the person if they don't listen to your idea. You have to show the negatives. You have to get them a little, I don't want to say scared because you don't need to be scaring people, but to some extent, you need to be scaring people. So take that kind of nuance for what it is, but you need to be showing people the evolutionary reason that they should be listening to your idea. What is the cost and benefit analysis? Why should it be very real to them that they need to be listening to your idea and locked in on what you're saying? Selfishly, talk to the selfish part of their brain, their alligator brain, when you're starting your pitch or giving the person your idea. Next, do I need to, is this a threat? So do I need to listen to it? Then the next part is it moving? Is there, do I need to take action on this quickly? If not, I can ignore it. So why is this important to me right now? So the human brain locks in on, so I'm just looking up, there's a street back there. I'm looking at, my brain very easily focuses on the cars because they're moving. The human brain is attuned to movement. This is not just a physical thing, it's an idea thing as well. So if you have an idea that's moving and you just hit a period in time where it's relevant, this is relevant right now because of this development made it just, reasonable to create this product at this low price point. It's early, so not a lot of people are doing it. It's a prime opportunity and it's a closing window. There has to be an opening, it has to be a moving, developing situation because the human brain keys in on movement, and there also has to be a time cutoff. It has to be scarce. If the human brain detects something scarce that it wants, it will then focus on it and pay a lot of attention to whatever it is you have to say. If you meet those criteria, and there are a couple more that Oren goes over in the book, but that's kind of the big picture of it, then you get to the prefrontal cortex. And by the way, if you do the work to get to the prefrontal cortex, usually the idea doesn't even matter. Let that sink in. The idea doesn't even matter. If you can get it to the prefrontal cortex and it's gone through the lizard brain, the early evolutionary parts of the brain to get to the later developed portion, your brain has already screened it to such an extreme level that it doesn't care what the content of the message is to a large extent. Now, there are some limitations on that, but at the same time, even saying that, think about some crazy things that humans have been convinced to do. I don't want to kill the energy here in the video, but think about the Holocaust. How did millions of people get convinced that that was right? It's because the people conveying the message of whatever was being conveyed by Nazi Germany, I don't know the specifics, but I kind of know the general facts, killing other people, going to war, genocide, stuff like that, it was conveyed in a way that made it past the hindbrain and the midbrain. It was pitched in a way that the brain was able to hear it. So in saying that, you need to understand this, and then once you understand how to do this, you need to be doing this responsibly. This is honestly like if you teach this to a person who's irresponsible, which I know a lot of the people who are watching my stuff and who kind of vibe with me are generally higher thinkers, they're more peaceful people. So I have no issue spreading this knowledge because I know you're gonna use it for good. Fingers crossed, I know you will. But the thing you gotta consider is, I think that's my car. Anyways, RAS, focused on my car because it's over there. Anyways, the reason I make the Holocaust point is because it shows you that the logic of the idea actually is irrelevant once you get to the point that the brain has accepted that it should listen to it. So that needs to be handled with care, for sure. But back to kind of the start of this video, think back to what could you do if you had the ability to have people, I was gonna say make, but it's not make them. If you had the ability to convince people to listen to you, if you could convince someone that your ideas are relevant and that your ideas are important and that it really is gonna matter to them what you're about to say, what could you do with that attention? Gary Vaynerchuk is very famous for saying, without attention, you could be having the best product in the world, you could be saying the best things, and it doesn't matter unless you have people's attention. That's what this book, Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff, is about. It's about getting people's attention and how to specifically do it. I don't think I've ever come across a book that is as tangible, He literally lays out step by step how to create a pitch that can actually be received by people, how to convey your idea in that way, and gives a general framework that you can apply to any idea. And then he gives specific examples of how he's done it and gives you food for thought on how you could do it with your ideas. This is an extremely valuable book. I know I've said this in other videos, but if you don't read this book, I pity you, okay? This book is extremely important for anybody who wants to convey any type of idea to understand. You need to be reading it. If this video does not catalyze you to read the book, I have failed and you have failed yourself, because unless you're taking action on this stuff, this video has been a complete waste of your time, okay? Do not let it be a waste of your time. Don't do that to me, man. And most importantly, don't do it to yourself, all right? So that said, if you want to connect with me about this book or anything else, I coach people on this type of content. I focus on 80-20 and also just conveying your ideas in a way that allows them to actually land, and how to improve your life in a low input, high output type of scenario. Hit me up on Instagram. My handle, we'll put it in here with the animation. It's @TampaBrad. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate your attention. Thank you so much for watching these vids. Go pick up Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. I swear, it will change the way you look at just the world in general. It's amazing, okay? There's a lot of, and there's more to come. You know, this is number 5, there's 4 more. Keep watching. Look forward to seeing you in the next vid for number 4. Thanks, I really, really appreciate your attention. I'll see you in the next vid. Peace.